Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to The Right Time. My name is Bomani Jones. Thanks for listening on the ESPN app, wherever else you get podcasts. We're trying to figure out the rhythm. I used to have it to get right on the beat at that time, but now things have changed a little bit now that we've gone to podcast. Thanks for joining us here in the world of podcasts, by the way. Not sure if you guys saw this, but we made it to number 1 on the Apple podcast sports chart. And then we went back to number 2. But at one point we were number 2 and I was behind Pull Up with CJ McCollum. I looked at that and then I realized that, he hadn't even put out an episode yet. Like, he did not even have an episode 0, not a trailer, nothing. He ain't put out an episode, and we were behind him. So, I mean, it was humbling and humbling all at the same time. But here we are. We're going to try to do one interview a week here on the Right Time podcast now that we've done this, and we have invited an old friend to join us. You can check him out at the Undefeated. The Morning Roast, Sundays 9 to 12 on ESPN Radio. He just got through fighting with Will Kane on television before he sat down to do this. His name is Darnell Foxworthy. All right, he's Domonique Foxworth. I guess people don't remember that. Some bot decided that his name was Darnell Foxworthy. And I actually think that as a corner, Darnell Foxworthy would have made a better name for you.
I think you're probably right. But I mean, it's not dead yet. Like, I can have an alter ego, can I? When I want to go after people.
Yes.
It's Darnell Foxworthy. That's like a burner account.
How do we make Darnell Foxworthy happen? I feel like we need to give Darnell Foxworthy a platform somewhere.
I need to work on a voice, though. Like, I need a voice. Darnell Foxworthy is very much like an uncle at the cookout voice.
Yeah, well, Darnell Foxworthy could have been that coach that you do on the Undefeated, right?
There it is.
If it had happened before, we could have only made him Darnell Foxworthy.
Yep, Coach Earl.
That's it.
I hate Coach Earl at this point, but sometimes people call to bring him back. I was like, no, I refuse. I'm going to kill that man.
That's it. You say you hate Coach Earl. Let me tell you what I hate. I hate the draft. I hate draft talk. Are you as a former NFL player, I hate it just because I feel like it's all made up. I feel like every single bit of it, for public consumption at least, is made up. And people don't care. They just need something to do, and so they consume it all. And so I have to do it because they do it.
Yeah, but I mean, what is that not true about? Like, I feel like almost all the entertainment that we consume is all made up. So I was not a big draft guy prior to working here, but I've started to find some parts of it that I enjoy, but I agree with you that it is all made up, and I've heard you before call it like a glorified personnel meeting or something like that. Yeah, I mean that is true. But sometimes personnel meetings get a little spicy. Somebody say something you don't like, and I would definitely watch a spicy personnel meeting. So it's essentially the same thing going on here. Lots of jokes come out of it. Sometimes guys come up on stage with big pictures. Guys inadvertently use profanity. It's just it's a fun little thing where everyone kind of wins too. Every team feels like they win at the end of the day.
Well, I guess that's part of what I don't like. Right? Everybody lies to themselves. Like, they do all the research on the front end so they can pretend like they know what's going on in the draft, right? Like, they all do that on the front end, and then their team takes somebody else, and then all of a sudden all your research doesn't matter because you now have to love the guy because you're stuck with him.
But you can find that and make that what you enjoy about the draft. You just got to find a little part, because there's plenty there. You can watch people dilute themselves into believing that some guy they never heard of was going to be their franchise savior. And you can watch all these guys draft quarterbacks way too high. And you can watch and listen to the analysis and all the things that people's analysis say about their own personal views. Like, those are the things about the draft that I really enjoy.
Yeah, but all those things are frustrating things, right? Like what you're talking about, like, correct. People tell on themselves all the time with their draft analysis. But then I have to deal with those people after that. It can be very frustrating. Like, all of it. And Lamar Jackson is the maddening figure in this year's draft, right? So I think the comparison that I have, not that they are the same player. They have some similarities, and really their similarities are having gone to Louisville and being from Florida. But with the way things went with Teddy Bridgewater in 2014, where all of a sudden with Bridgewater, things were problems that we never knew were problems before. Things were problems for him that were not problems for people in the same exact draft. Like, we just seen the move to knock a guy down. Lamar Jackson seems to be in that place. And like Bridgewater, he's got actual real life flaws that cannot be ignored. But do you get as frustrated as me when it's time to turn him into a wide receiver?
Yeah, that's just trash. But I mean, it's laughable at this point. There's some things that are so far out that you just have to laugh. You can't take those people seriously, because I understand that it is probably human nature or not probably, it is definitely like a vestigial desire or instinct to group things. So when you see a tiger and you see stripes, you're like, hey, that's dangerous. Or you see a strawberry, you're like, hey, I can eat that. The same thing is happening to people where they're like, oh, hey, black guy, athletic, that's not a quarterback. So I see that happening and I laugh, but I watched, I'm working on a piece with Mina Kimes, and part of it touches on, Lamar Jackson. So I watched a lot of Lamar Jackson. If you watch him honestly, it's no way you can come to the conclusion. Like I had a debate with somebody this morning who works here. It wasn't Will Kane, it was somebody else, and it's not an on-air person. Otherwise I would put them on blast. But someone who said that, Lamar Jackson is a project because he needs to learn how to not be so anxious to run. And that is based on them, just kind of a perception you have about that style of play. Because when I watch Lamar Jackson sits in the pocket. And Lamar Jackson goes through his progression, and occasionally he runs. He's not that guy. A lot of his rushing yards came from design runs where they're like, hey, you're going to run this play. He's not the guy that drops back and is like, oh, you're not open? Tuck and go. That's just like not, if anybody comes to that conclusion, there is something else going through their mind than what they've watched.
Well, see, that's part of why I hate the draft, because I would guess that person you were talking to hadn't actually watched any of this stuff, right? Like it's a rehash of previous cliches, and right. Jackson seems to fit that because of the high number of rushing yards that he had. But from the people I trust that watched the film, it was the same thing that you said, that the running was designed. Like Bobby Petrino is not out here on some do what you want kind of thing. He's got an ego about his offense, and he wants you to run it.
Oh yeah, he's been running some of the same plays are plays that he ran in the NFL, like the exact same plays.
That's right, you played for him.
Yeah, with that. No, I didn't actually play for him. I played for the Falcons the season after he abandoned the Falcons.
Got it.
I watched a lot of Falcons film, and it's the same stuff. So he kind of tacked the way that I explained it was he took a Wildcat offense. And you know how you have a Wildcat offense and you have a Wildcat quarterback and you run them in and you run those plays? Like that's what it kind of feels like, except they don't actually run in another quarterback. They just throw in this new package that's unconnected to the rest of the things that they run. And they're like, all right, now you're going to be a Wildcat quarterback. Go back to being a drop back quarterback. And he kind of did that well. His accuracy, that's a legitimate concern that many people I've talked to said that with good coaching and diligent preparation is something that you can address, because they say it goes down to his footwork. But I don't know. He's one of the most exciting and interesting players in the draft for me. Like I don't know why people separate him from the other quarterbacks, frankly, in the way that they talk about him.
Well, do you buy that on accuracy being something that can be fixed? Because everyone seems to say that about quarterbacks, and it rarely ever happens.
Yeah. So I don't know, honestly, if I buy it or not. I think that it's probably true for some players and not true for other players, because it depends on kind of what the issue is. So the fact that people have been able to point out what the issue is with him is saying it's his footwork. You can see, because he has some passes where if you group together his best balls, you're like, oh my God, this is the most accurate quarterback I've ever had. And if you group together his worst passes, you're like, this guy can't make it in the NFL. But I think a lot of guys who have issue are guys who are just consistently inconsistent, and they are not able to perfect that pass. He's shown the ability to perfect the footwork and the throw consistently. Or not consistently, but enough through the course of a game that you're like, well, if we can just get him to do that all the time. And I mean, that's the trap of the draft, is you could probably say that's true about every player. And the problem is people only say that about Lamar Jackson in this case. And it worries me that you talk about Lamar Jackson like he's a project when he's actually not. The NFL is much more accustomed to, or set up now, offenses are, to facilitate a player like that than it is the traditional pocket passer.
Well, all this also makes me wonder, is Josh Allen kin to somebody? Is he on the George Allen, Bruce Allen family tree, or do people believe that? Well, the only reason I say that is if you put together the best throws that Josh Allen has, and I don't mean just the heaves 100 yards down the field in workouts, right? I mean actual in-game throws. The highs of Josh Allen are higher than anybody else in this draft from what I've seen, right? Like he looks the part in all of that stuff, and the lows of his are a blooper reel. But the people who love Josh Allen ignore the blooper reel. And I don't see how you could do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's about being comfortable with something in the past. And the NFL is a really old-fashioned league. The people who like NFL are kind of conservative in their mindset and their ability to change. And Josh Allen looks like guys that they've seen have success. And Lamar Jackson looks like guys that they have seen fail. When in actuality, a lot of the guys in the NFL who are having success, like with the exception of maybe Tom Brady, the rest of those guys are really athletic. Like you think about Aaron Rodgers. Look at Aaron Rodgers' best plays and his best big plays through the course of the season. It's a result of him scrambling, keeping his eyes downfield, which Lamar Jackson does a lot, and watching the defense break down and completing a deep pass. But the comparison between Aaron Rodgers and Lamar Jackson and their style of play, like, is never made. When I actually don't think he's as much like, RG3. Like, he's not like RG3. The only thing that looks like RG3 is he's brown and really fast. He's a bit bigger than RG3, but the way they play, you watch RG3 in college, he was like a spread quarterback. And you watch him, I was critical of RG3 the year that he was in his best year when he came in as a rookie in Washington. He was killing people with his running attack, and the passing game was so, like, basic. It was 2-man routes, and it was successful because people were terrified of him as a runner. He was not the guy that was going to sit back and read the pocket, but that's what people kind of remember as kind of a corollary to Lamar Jackson, whether it's true or false.
Yeah, like I would make the argument Josh Allen looks like more guys who have failed than Lamar Jackson does, because most guys like Lamar Jackson, they try to make them into wide receivers. Except they're not about to make Lamar Jackson into no wide receiver, because Lamar Jackson's mama is not here for it. Jonathan Jones of MMQB.com, I thought, had a great story about the dynamics around Lamar Jackson, because he doesn't have an agent. His mom is his manager, and she does not appear to be allowing anybody to get close to him, which she has basically maintained as a lifestyle since he was in high school. My first question for you is, do you think he's making a mistake by not hiring an agent?
So I think that there's arguments on both sides. So, like, we all know, like, rookie pay is not something that he can necessarily negotiate. But there are a lot of things, and again, I'm copying you a bit. I've heard you talk about, there are a lot of things that you have to know about navigating the world of professional sports that you just don't know if you haven't done it before. There's a learning curve that we probably take for granted in communicating with teams and making sure that you understand what the best place is for your guy. Like, these are things that are particularly true for a quarterback. There are lots of quarterbacks who are talented and become considered busts because they land in a wrong situation. And I mean, the most recent example was Jared Goff. Like, Jared Goff was, I think, statistically the worst quarterback in NFL history 2 years ago. And then the situation changed. He got a coach who recognized that he was not a downfield quarterback and built an offense around the limited skills of Jared Goff. And now all of a sudden we're like, hey, this guy is a championship level quarterback. So I think to the degree that it matters where you end up and how you understand the ins and outs of an organization, it hurts him a bit. But I can just say that it doesn't help him, I guess. Having your mom run your business doesn't necessarily help you unless he's concerned to some degree about being guided in the wrong direction. I'm trying my best. Yeah, I'm trying my best.
Yeah, because here's the thing I say about his mother, because I don't think it was stupid to not get an agent, but I think it's a poor decision to make, right? Like, I don't think it helps you in any way to do this. And in the end, what are you saving at 3%? Like, it's not even like the 10% that your agent gets in the kind of work that we do. We're talking about 3% here. Like, I don't feel like it's a matter of saving money is the reason why they're doing this. But I'm fascinated by his mother, because apparently she has been insistent upon him being a quarterback since he was in high school. Like, she had an eye for this that a lot of other parents, and by parents I mean fathers, don't have. Like, I think the assumption that a lot of people would make is that if you don't have a man around, that these are some of the things that don't happen. No, she seems to understand the world of football in a way to know that people were going to try to stop her son from playing quarterback. And I'm fascinated to know just more about her and how she got to this point and caring that much about him being a quarterback, because in the end, that's only a thing that matters if you're talking about getting to the pros. Otherwise, you're normally just worried about guys getting a scholarship and then working it out from there. She saw an NFL quarterback in her son, and I'm curious as to how she got there.
Right, yeah, and I mean, I guess that's an argument for, because she was not a football talent scout. That's an argument for her being able to figure this stuff out on the fly. She wasn't a talent scout. She ended up, I guess, managing the career of a Heisman Trophy winner. Like, she made all these decisions around his life that got him to where he is. So I could understand why maybe she and he think that who better to take him to the next step than the person who got him to where he is. So, I mean, it's hard to push back against that. I think it's true that there are some people that are probably capable of doing that. I think there are fewer people than, I think that's a low probability, which is probably why we both are kind of put off by, where we think, like, you play the odds, you get somebody who knows what they're doing. But, I mean, that's an argument for it, is they've gotten this far without the help of an agent, presumably.
And they apparently got Bobby Petrino to hold up his word.
Yeah, which is more than the Falcons could say.
Right, no, that was a great part in that story where Lamar Thomas basically, as a receivers coach, he had to get Bobby Petrino to come in to talk to Lamar Jackson's mom, because they asked him to run back a punt one day. Right? And that's it. His mama was like, oh, no, ain't gonna be no punt. Ain't no running back, no punts. And Bobby Petrino had to look her in the eye and say, no, my son, your son is going to be a quarterback. And keep in mind, this is at a point in Bobby Petrino's life where he was out of leverage.
Right.
Because everything had gone bad. And then next thing you know, Bobby Petrino has himself a Heisman Trophy winner.
I mean, that's a level of where I could say that having your mom involved is something that helps. That's a level of faith and trust and commitment that you may not get from an agent, because an agent's like, hey, I don't know, this coach says you need to do this. You need to go ahead and do that so that we can keep these checks coming. Your mama, though, your mama like, nah, this is what we're going to do. I don't care. I don't have no other clients. I don't have nothing else. There's nothing more important to me in my life right now than making sure his career goes on the path that we see it going on. I mean, I can't imagine that an agent would have, obviously he wouldn't have had an agent in college, but if a situation like this arises in the NFL, an agent might try to do what's best for the agent or what's best for the team to maintain that relationship. That happens all the time. Your mama not going to do that.
Yeah, I do feel like the both of them need to do more talking to people, though.
Yeah.
Right? Like, part of this job is talking to people. And one thing that strikes me about Jackson, and this is even like in his Heisman Trophy acceptance and interview stuff that we've seen since then, he seems to have little to no practice with, like, speaking before media, which I feel like is a failure of everybody that was around him.
Right. But I guess if you think the fundamental most important thing is you play well, and maybe she recognizes that he's not good at that and that he cannot help himself necessarily, and this is all just speculation, maybe she recognizes that he can't help himself by doing that at this point. The only thing he can do is let people kind of speculate around him and let his play do the talking, his play up until this point and his play going forward. And again, this may just be me trying to build post hoc arguments to support this after things have happened, but that's the way I would defend it if someone asked me to, if I were her.
Well, I hope she wins. Like, the one thing about this is I hope that this works out well, because I got no reason to root against him, right? It's just very interesting to think that we're talking about a guy that's won a Heisman Trophy and all these things, and the world around him is so small at this point. And I don't know how much background we have on this happening with anybody.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's arguments that having a small world is probably pretty good when you're trying to assimilate to an NFL franchise. I think the danger in having a completely wide open world is probably higher than it is to just be like, hey, me and mama in this playbook, we're going to get this stuff figured out this first season.
Well, I also think he's going to get drafted in the first round no matter what anybody says.
Yeah. I mean, it would be absurd. I said earlier on First Take that I don't think he would make it past. The conversation was about the Patriots potentially moving up to get a quarterback. I don't think they're going to do that. But if he's there, I can't imagine that a coach like Belichick or even Sean Payton, would be salivating at the idea of getting this type of player, because these are the type of coaches that will build around the talent that they have. They're not the type of coaches that are like, hey, y'all gonna run this system. They're like, hey, this guy can do this really well. He can do this really well. He can do this really well. We're going to build an entire offense that accentuates that, which is not what Petrino did in college. And Lamar Jackson still is a Heisman Trophy winner.
Yeah, and also I say this, I don't know how good Lamar Jackson is going to be. I'm almost out of the guessing about quarterback business, right? But I feel better about how good a quarterback he could be than I felt about Deshaun Watson coming out. I was way more skeptical of Watson than I am. I'm still somewhat skeptical of Watson. I was way more skeptical of Watson than I am of Jackson.
Yeah, I've talked to a bunch of people about Watson, and most NFL kind of minded people, former players and scouts feel the same way. Is Watson coming out? You watch that great game that we look at when they won the championship. He led all those really great drives, and they're like, he made the wrong read every single play. He just was better than the guys on the other side of the field. He wasn't and he ran a kind of a bit of a college style offense. None of that is true for Lamar Jackson, and Lamar Jackson is also a better runner. So, yeah, I'm with you. I'm on Team Jackson higher than I am on Team Watson. But it all comes down to in the NFL is how they're going to build around you, and are they going to let you or put you in a situation that allows you to do the things that make you perform best.
Now let's talk about another quarterback. Because you are a smarty art sort of dude, as I am a bit of a smarty art sort of dude.
Nah, we are not on the same smarty art spectrum, sir.
I mean, well,
you're the smartiest of the arts.
I don't know, man.
I'm a secondary smarty art. You and Pablo.
When you born
first day smarty art.
When you born in Oxford, I feel like that makes you like an osmosisly smarty art in your world.
Dad was in the military, which is different than your parents who were professors. So
yeah, I mean, my dad was in the military too. It was just before that.
No. My dad went from high school to the military. Right. He had no choice.
Right. But same here. But that's a different story. But like,
blackness.
Yes. Now, but to say, even if this is true, right, you would definitely smarty art for NFL world. Is that fair?
That's fair.
All right. Josh Rosen appears to be the smarty artist of NFL world. What do you think about Josh Rosen? Just general, like, personal football player, what do you think of Josh Rosen?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's tremendous talent. Like, he's a lot like Lamar Jackson in that you can't project what type of success he has, but he has enough, he's good at enough things that in the right situation, I could see him being one of the better quarterbacks in the league. The smarty artness, that as a criticism is, I mean, there are a few things more damning for the NFL than the idea that a guy being smart at a position that we all agree is a mentally taxing one, like that's a drawback. Like like when I watch games and people get hit really hard, I'm like, glad I'm not playing that game anymore. And when I hear people say, oh, he's too smart to be here, I am so happy not to be affiliated with an industry that's like, nah, we need you a little bit dumber. You're a little bit too interested in other things to play this. Like that just seems to me like a foolish thing. And Aaron Rodgers, I've seen him, a video of him working with Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is the same type of guy. Like you talk to Aaron Rodgers, you have a conversation with Aaron Rodgers, you read about Aaron Rodgers. He's the type of guy that's interested in a whole bunch of other things outside of football. And that tends to be the case for guys who are really smart. Guys who are really smart desire to have that part of their brain engaged, and going to work and doing football all the time is just not going to be enough. The fact that it's a drawback for him is just foolish.
Well, I feel like it speaks to a couple of things, right? One is the tacit acknowledgement by people in the NFL that this is a really stupid job, right? Like they're afraid that one day that everybody's going to wake up and be like, what the hell am I doing here? And then roll out, right? I mean, because the other part of it too is Rosen is smart and his people got money. So that would double down on the idea that at some point he's just going to wake up. This is crazy. I'm out of here. But I think the other part is this almost seems to be reflective of a societal resentment of smart people. To a degree, because the whole idea is, he's going to get on people's nerves being as smart as he is, which, by the way, is totally possible, because I don't know if he knows how to talk to people. But Why'd you ask
me about this? This is the Bomani Jones experience.
No, I talked about that on the podcast the last time, but I asked you because I could see you as being the guy that the coaches might look at and be like, yo, I might be a little bit too smart for doing this.
Oh yeah, no, I got that criticism, never to my face, but I would hear it from other places. It wasn't never as much as being too smart, but just, not being able to stay engaged in, which is hard. We reinstall, basics of defense every year, training camp. Day one, we go through the position names. We go through how to play cover one. Like this is something that happens every year in every training camp. And to me, it's like, why are we doing this? And then we go through the, which is part of the reason why I think a more like collaborative effort as far as coaching is concerned that involves the players would be a smart approach, because I am kind of perceived as a smart player, but all the players are really smart. Like the intelligence that it requires to process information at that speed, like is something that is valuable. And I see a lot of guys where we learn tendencies about a team that we're going into, and we're all like, all right, so we should probably do this. And the coaches will shy away from doing the more complicated things for fear of leaving behind the dumb guys, which it's not really that many dumb guys in the league. Maybe there's not a ton of educated guys, which is different than being smart, but the guys can process the information. So I think the problem is not with the player, in this case, Josh Rosen. The problem is with the system, and it's kind of a hierarchical system that's militaristic, that they like to think about the bottom class as expendable and themselves as the geniuses that can fix it all.
Well, how much of a question asker were you? Because it sounds like part of the thing with Josh Rosen, he'll mess around and ask you a question you don't have an answer for, and nobody likes that when they're in the front of the room.
Oh yeah, I was definitely a question asker, but I had the good fortune of being with Champ Bailey at the beginning of my career. So I asked him the questions, and then he asked the questions. And we end up in a better place. Because I would be like, yeah, this doesn't really make sense. Why aren't we doing this? I remember one of the questions that I asked Champ that did not ever make it to the coach was, we were We were running, like a all-out blitz most of the season, my rookie year, where we would just all-out blitz on third down, second downs, and leave me and Champ at the corners in zero coverage. So I'm like, all right, this is a lot of pressure. It worked for us. We played well. We made it all the way to the AFC Championship game. AFC Championship game, the Steelers kind of figured out how to motion a guy over and pick up the blitz and still have time. So then we stopped running the blitz and we went into cover one, and the safety was hanging out in the middle of the field. And I was like, hey, now that we got a safety, why don't you lean him over this direction? Because you know who's on the other side? Quite possibly the best corner that has ever played the game. Never leaned him. I'm just like, what? This seems like simple math right here. Let's lean my direction. Give your boy some help. Your rookie third round pick in the AFC Championship game. Give me a little help. Let me sit on this comeback. Nah, we just gonna let Champ and you. We're gonna treat y'all as if y'all the same type of player, which is just crazy to me. We lost that game. Needless to say.
I was about to say, how'd that work out for you though? Not so much for the team, but for you.
I dropped the interception in the first series and then proceeded to get picked on for the majority of the game, and I did not like it.
Ooh, not picked on.
Yeah, that was the only time. So I started opposite Champ most of the season, played really well. He actually had the best season of his career that year with like 8 picks. I had 3 and we played well. We won 13 games. Great season. We won a playoff game. We beat the Patriots. And then we had an AFC Championship game and didn't go well for your boy.
Is there a moment in a game like that where you realize, wait a minute, they picking on me?
No, not in the game. Not until after the game did I realize it. But they completed passes on Champ and made things, but it felt so much worse because you know that Champ has so much goodwill, or whoever that is on the other side has so much goodwill that you could give up a touchdown or two and they're like, it's okay. But your boy was a third round pick. Rookie, like I had a couple big plays through the course of the season, but I didn't have that type of goodwill. So after 1 or 2 happened, the perception is they picking on your boy. Can we talk about something else?
Sure. We can do that.
This is like I'm in the studio sweat.
We can go back to Josh Rosen. See, when we do this on TV and they like to put that shot of you on the ground getting run away from, you like to point out to people that they just dots in the crowd, but you ain't got no picture to work off of this time.
Oh yeah, they still are just dots in the crowd. That remains true. We are currently the ones that they are listening to, and them haters are just the little dots in the crowd.
They're the dots.
So get in my mentions, dots.
But with Rosen, like, as much as we hear this concern about maybe NFL guys, and I think a lot of this though was hypothetical. Like we've talked about how hypothetical NFL guys aren't going to like Rosen. He's probably going to get drafted in the top 3, right? Like that would be my guess on him. But with interactions with players, because that is something that one thing I'm interested about in the NFL that gets lost is there is a divergence of who is in the locker room, and not all those guys ever actually have to talk to each other, but the quarterback kind of does have to talk to everybody, and that is where I do kind of look at him and be like, man, I sure hope you know how to talk to these cats.
Yeah, I don't imagine that he's been around football this long and hasn't figured out how to talk to people, and if you win, it doesn't really matter. Like if you are the guy who's balling, you can talk to cats any way you want. They'll be happy to follow you, particularly at that position. And again, I go back to Aaron Rodgers. He's kind of the comparison for both the quarterbacks that we talked about earlier or so far today. Aaron Rodgers is a guy who we've heard reports his teammates don't really love him. Those reports always come after guys have left, and those guys who are there seem to like him. They seem to win a lot, and they seem to do pretty well. So if he turns out to be a player like that, I'm sure most people will be comfortable with him not necessarily knowing all the right things to say.
Well, also, I would think if there's anybody who probably had to learn more about how to talk to people, it would be Peyton Manning, right?
Yeah.
Except Peyton. Also, Peyton was empowered. He's like, Mr. Jesse is robbing this trade, and everybody's got to get on board.
And that helps. So we assume that cultures of teams are generally the same, and we assume that the coach sets the culture. It's not true. The culture is decided in the locker room, not necessarily by the star player, but it helps. And if he's the guy who's from LA, is already rich, and can throw the ball, like he's cool. He's going to be a culture setter. The conversations that I had in certain locker rooms are much more highbrow than I had in other locker rooms. It's not because the other locker rooms aren't capable. It's just like the culture of this locker room was like, off-color jokes. The culture of this other locker room was like social issues. And you talked about how there are factions on teams. You find your different factions. The quarterback doesn't necessarily have to talk to or relate to all the players in the locker room. I think that's somewhat of a fallacy. And I think he will influence. He's the type of guy, strong enough personality, strong enough talent, that he will influence the culture. And people will come in and start to behave in a way that Josh Rosen is pushing forward, not necessarily in the way that hypothetical dumb D tackle is pushing.
Also, he put a hot tub in the dorm room as a freshman, which makes him player forever.
Yeah, I think guys are going to want to hang out with my man. He's going to be starting quarterback. He's already got money, and he's the type of guy that wants a hot tub in the dorm room. You better befriend Rosen before he gets too big for you.
I also feel like Rosen probably learned a lot after putting that hot tub in that room, because one lesson he learned is after you do that, you can't tell nobody no. Right? Like, you can't tell me I can't use the hot tub. You can't tell me I can't bring the crew through the hot tub. Why these other cats get to do it and I don't?
But, I mean, the other lesson that he probably learned is let's keep this low key, which is an important lesson for him to learn headed into the NFL. Because that man's going to have a lot of fun in the next few years. And it's important to keep that off the gram, keep that off of Twitter, whatever these kids are doing. You just got to keep it low, Josh. Keep it low, and you'll have a lot more fun for years to come.
All right, now we got another topic here for our good friend Domonique Foxworth. Have you been paying attention to what's going on with Kawhi Leonard and the Spurs?
Yeah, I have. It's been fun.
All right, so now Kawhi is rehabbing this injury. He's rehabbing in New York with the National Basketball Players Association and what our good buddy Woj describes as outside medical professionals. Now, what's your read on what's going on here?
So I am about player empowerment. Like everything about my professional playing and post-professional career is about player empowerment. So I'm all for him taking his career into his own hands. He has the leverage, the talent to do so. I think so many players make a mistake of chasing the love and adulation of a coach, an organization, or a fan base that does not really love you and will put you aside as soon as they can. Instead, he's looking out for himself in the same way that all organizations and all coaches do. I like that. The thing that I have a bit of a problem with is this perception that people have that they are the people around Kawhi that are pushing him to do things that he doesn't want to do. Now, I'm sure the people around him have an impact on him and influence his thinking and his decisions, but Kawhi is a grown damn man. He is making the decision that he wants to make that he thinks will be best for his career, and I will never I don't have full information. I'll never criticize somebody for doing that because I would hate for somebody to do that to me.
Well, the difficulty in figuring that part out is, well, hold on one second. We got a little interview sound here from Kawhi Leonard. Oh, there it is right there. You didn't hear it? There's Kawhi. Hold on. Kawhi about to say something else. Right. Like this is what we've heard. Do you know what his voice sounds like?
No, I could guess. Probably kind of deep. I mean, he probably talks slowly, but I don't know what it sounds like.
I've told you my story about, I was at All-Star in New Orleans a couple years ago, and I'm on the back street, and I saw Wale out the window of the Uber, and so I hollered at him right fast. He came over. He's like, yo, man, I'm trying to lay low. I'm like, all right, my bad. Apologize. 5 steps behind him with headphones on and a button-up in jeans with nobody noticing him is Kawhi Leonard. just walking, just there, nobody with him, just totally quiet. And so I don't know because I've never heard anything from him. Everybody talks about it being Kawhi's camp. Is he quiet all the time, or is he just quiet around us? Or are people making this assumption that just because he doesn't talk too much that he can't operate with what he himself decides to do? I think that is part of what makes this weird, is just that he is the quiet guy and he plays for the Spurs. And so I think a lot of people assumed, well, Tim Duncan was a relatively quiet guy and he rolled along with everything the Spurs did, and Kawhi is going to be just like Tim Duncan. And I saw Kawhi and his family at the finals in Miami for those years, and let me tell you something, that ain't Tim Duncan's family. They different people.
It's hard for me to disagree with any of that you're saying. Like, we don't know. It's hard for me to agree or disagree. No one really knows who Kawhi Leonard is. And I guess to a degree, we don't really know who any of these guys are, but we know them better than we know Kawhi Leonard. So, Kawhi has allowed us, by being quiet and being excellent, he's allowed so many of us to imagine what we want him to be. Yeah. And now it is the few of us who have imagined something different. This is really upsetting. I'm not one of those people, but this is really upsetting to those people now who's like, oh, he is one of these guys who has an opinion and is not going to get in line just because we say get in line. I like that guy. So I hope that that's who he is, and I hope that it's not somebody behind the scenes puppeting Kawhi, like how the people who want to hold on to the idea of Kawhi as this Tim Duncan figure, how they think he is.
Well, part of I think what's interesting also is that the Spurs are like the Patriots in a lot of ways, and not just in the consistency of success, but they've got this, they hold all the information in-house. Their coach is a bit more affable and talks to people more, but they're operating on the same thing, and the idea that there's going to be this culture that you have to buy into, a culture, by the way, that often involves giving back money if you want to stick around, like all of those things. And so I feel like because they're successful, that fans very often believe that the only thing that players should worry about is winning. And that if you're winning, then you should be happy. That's the only thing you should worry about, is the fact that you're winning. And the Spurs have won a lot, but it's also possible, man, that this Spurs thing isn't really what Kawhi Leonard is about.
That's fair. And I don't think that's what I would be about, quite honestly. And I think a lot of people who are listening and watch Kawhi, I don't know if that's what they would be about. But then we always fall and think, well, they pay you millions of dollars. Well, he's worth it. And he's probably worth more than he gets paid. So I'm completely fine with someone saying, looking at an organization and put the injury aside and saying, this ain't the right fit for me. And we are comfortable with coaches doing it all the time and organizations doing it all the time. And we just move past it like, yeah, he just doesn't fit. And now Kawhi in the NBA, where the players are as powerful, frankly, more powerful than the coaches, and maybe as powerful as any team some players are, it's fine for them to be able to pick the situation that they want best. If he's using the injury to do that, I have a problem with that. Like, just be honest. Like, I don't mess with Pop. I don't mess with the Spurs. I want out of here. If that's what's going on, using the injury to advance this cause, I think is a little less than commendable. But if that's what the reason is, then more power to him.
Now, did you ever have a situation where they kept trying to tell you that you were good and you were like, nah, it hurts?
So again, it goes back to Champ Bailey. He told me early on in my career, where I was like playing through an injury, he said, there's a difference between being tough and dumb tough. He said that at the same time he was playing through a ridiculous amount of injuries. So I pointed out to him that he was very dumb tough. But yeah, I mean, that's what it boils down to for me. Is I had a shot one time in my career, and it was that rookie year, and it's probably the time when Champ told me what he did, and I never did after that, where it was like, nah, I'm not. I mean, even when I was a free agent and it was important to play well a particular season, no, I'm not going to do that. If I can't play, au natural, I'm not going to play because it can't be good for me long term. So I never really had that situation. I had situations where, like, culturally, I didn't necessarily fit on a team, but not the pain situation.
Well, how's it go with the team when they're like, hey, you want to get a shot? And you're like, nah, I'm good, thanks.
I mean, I think I probably had a different experience, because while I will admit that a lot of guys on the team are as smart as me, I was perceived as the smart guy because I was outspoken and I was heavily involved in the union. So I suspect that my experience was very different. Like, as executive committee member or president of the union or team rep, and nobody trying to push you to do nothing because they're scared that you might be, as they call you, the locker room lawyer, and they don't want. So I suspect that I probably had a different experience when people were like, you want a shot? I was like, nah, that was the end of that.
Yeah, they don't like you lawyer guys. I think they're afraid Josh Rosen going to be the locker room judge, huh?
I sure hope so. And I hope that he doesn't quiet down, because he said some controversial things in college. Keep going. Be you. Open the doors for the players to come after you, to follow in those same footsteps.
He's kind of the opposite of Kawhi Leonard, huh?
Which is nice. He has some differences that allow him to be the opposite of Kawhi Leonard. And playing quarterback in the NFL is one of those things. You play well. Even Kawhi seems he plays well, and he still doesn't get away scot-free. I promise you, if Josh Rosen is slinging these tugs, ain't nobody gonna say nothing to him about what he got to say about off the field issues.
You know, one thing I was thinking about here with Kawhi Leonard too, we lose sight of the fact that the last time we really saw Kawhi Leonard play, I know we played a handful of games this year, but the last time we really saw him play, the Spurs were up by 157 points on the Warriors, and it wasn't Zaza that put him out.
Yep.
And that's that. That's that. Like, altered the whole NBA.
So we are kind of, not we necessarily, but a lot of people overreact to that, where it's like they played well for half. Like, let's not get carried away. The Spurs were going to get mollywopped in that series. I'm not saying the Spurs were going to win that series. I am saying, though, that if you saw them put up a 26-point lead in that time period, you can't say they was going to get mollywopped. Well, they might have won a game.
They were going to win that game.
They were going to win that game. They wasn't going to win no more.
You know, can I hit you on something real briefly? We hadn't even planned to talk about, but since we got you here on this basketball topic, what you think about Kevin Durant?
I love Kevin Durant. I know what people talk about the new Kevin Durant, because he's catching all these teas, and he's going on Bill Simmons' podcast, calling out blog boys. Like, Kevin Durant is obviously a sensitive person, and many of us are. And so many of the sensitive people cower in the corner when they get criticized. I'm down for KD coming after people. I appreciate PG County KD becoming PG County KD in the public and not trying to convince us that he is anything otherwise. Keep up the KD. I mean, cussing out refs, that's a little bit much, but hey, refs they heard more. I mean, they heard worse. They grown men. They can handle it. Do your thing, KD.
I think I'd feel better about him taking these shots at people, which he's certainly entitled to do, as I take shots at people for a living, but I do it on my name. And I admit, it's never been the same since we found out that dude was out here on the burners. Once we found out he was an egg, never the same.
I agree, but he's not egging anymore.
Well, he's not. Only reason he's not egging anymore is because his eggs got took from him.
Well, we don't care. I don't care how he got to the new KD, but I like the new KD who is standing behind his egg-like comments and not hiding behind a burner account anymore.
But it sounds miserable, though, being this upset about these things that you can't control in this way. Right. I kind of worry about cats like this. Like, I'm not one, like, with people who relate to the guys who are driven by the chip on their shoulder, maybe it's because that's not how I operate. I'm like, oh, man, those people are miserable.
Yeah. I mean, they're miserable, and some people think that is the reason for their success. I, like you, think there's another way to go about it because I didn't have a career. But I wasn't that great either. I was going to say I didn't have a career that was fueled on hating people and proving people wrong. But maybe, I don't agree, but maybe some people think that's the difference between good and great. It seems like a miserable existence. I wouldn't want to have it. I'd rather be a slightly worse player who was happy all the time. But I like it in KD because it seems true to him. Like, we talk about guys changing and becoming new, but like, he was 19 when he came into the league. You're right. He gonna be different when he's older. He got a little more confidence. He got a little bit of experience. You might be able to intimidate me when I was 19, but at the age that I am now, what am I, 35 now? Yeah. I feel different about myself. I'm more comfortable in my own skin. I'm more secure in who I am. And I like to think that that's the reason why KD is behaving the way he's behaving, not because he is just super sensitive, but maybe a little bit of both.
I tell you this, boy, you are really, really good at the optimism thing of it, right? like finding the best in other people. Like, that is the thing that I am impressed with you about. By the way, while we're talking about chip on shoulder guy, of course, like, ultimate chip on shoulder guy is Michael Jordan, who sounds like maybe the most miserable human being in the world. But the Michael Jordan stories of chip on shoulder are all so hilarious because he's so crazy when it comes to these things, where everything in life is a competition to Michael Jordan.
Yeah, so I have this tough thing where, like, I understand that, and that's the story behind Michael Jordan, but I feel so often that we like stories, we like movies, we like books, we like entertainment, and I think so often we wait until after something happens, and then we try to find these plot points to describe why a person is the way that they are. Like, I'm not sure that Michael Jordan was as great as he was because he created all these motivations. If we took the ability for Michael Jordan to create all these slights in the way he was, are we saying that Michael Jordan wouldn't have been great? So that's what I have a hard time with.
Well, yeah. I think he's as great as he was because he's a world-class athlete, first and foremost, right? However, there is this other part with Michael Jordan, which is he is a crazy person when it comes to all things competitive. It doesn't matter what it is, all things competitive. And I find it hilarious. Like, I don't need it to fuel the narrative so much.
Right.
However, to this day, if you told me Mike and LeBron were going to play a game of one-on-one, my money's still on Mike.
What?
My money's still on Mike.
You don't believe that.
Here's what I believe.
Bomani, you are not a hot take artist.
Here's what I believe. Here's what I believe. Just listen, just hear me out.
Okay.
You're not going to beat them. It is not a matter of whether LeBron is a better basketball player right now. It's not a matter of whether today's LeBron is better than 1998 Michael Jordan. It's a matter of LeBron's going to walk out of there with a floating testicle before Michael Jordan walks out of there with an L, because he's not going to lose.
Okay, so I'm willing to accept that this is just hyperbole for the sake of making a point.
No,
you actually don't believe this.
No. It's not hyperbole. I'm not saying that Michael Jordan is going to win. But when LeBron got that punctured lung because Mike elbowed him in the chest, the game gonna have to end.
So Mike is the type of guy that's going to accidentally, in air quotes, kick the Nintendo when he started to get down. He's that type of guy.
It's not even accidental. He just go kick the Nintendo. When do you think's the last time somebody beat Michael Jordan in one-on-one?
I mean, it's probably been a long time, but he's also the guy who may be smart enough to realize I just ain't gonna play no more.
What makes you think that?
Yeah, that's not. Michael Jordan is not going to beat. So let's get back. How you get me? You, sir, are the smartest of the arts because you managed to get me off of the point. The point is you said that Michael Jordan can take off his tie and put on some Jumpmans and beat LeBron James and one. Oh no, not beat LeBron James. You think he won't lose to LeBron James?
He won't lose. He cares about this in a way that LeBron does not.
I don't think Michael Jordan is capable of hurting LeBron James. LeBron ain't never been hurt. Michael Jordan can't hurt LeBron James at this point. What move he got?
That is a tough one. You
seen LeBron's jaw? He could take a shot.
Ooh, but how many of them is he going to have to take?
He could throw one too.
But here's the thing. Can he take a thumb to the eye?
I think a one-eye LeBron James will beat current state Michael Jordan.
I don't know why you think he's going to stop at the one eye.
So you think that LeBron James will not respond though? So Michael give him an eye gouge. LeBron not coming back with a throat chop?
I don't think he'll be able to see. I think
he's going for 2 eyes on the first gouge.
He will Ric Flair him with that and be like one of them Japanese wrestlers and blow the stuff in his face if that's what he's required to do.
The Dragon Steamboat?
Yeah, nobody, dude. It's Jordan. Jordan's not right. Like, I don't think these are admirable qualities. Like, every time I hear somebody talk about Michael Jordan, I'm like, yo, this is not an admirable quality at all. Do you think them Jordan boys have ever come close to beating their daddy in a game of one-on-one or a game of anything?
Well, them Jordan boys ain't good as LeBron James. That's what it comes down to. I think that maybe Michael Jordan could beat his sons in one-on-one, fair and square. I actually interviewed Michael Jordan not too long ago for a piece that never aired for Gatorade, and he was awesome interview. And what you're talking about, where he finds like slights everywhere, like before we even started talking, he goes into beefs that he has. And like the mic ain't even on, and I'm just making small talk because it's Michael Jordan. It's just me and him on a trailer, so I'm making small talk, just trying to befriend him. We talk about his growing up, and he starts to get teary-eyed about his father and this sort of stuff. Then he starts talking about playing ball around the way and how they would travel from court to court. He started remembering people who didn't even play high school against him. He started remembering people from neighborhoods around his, like, yeah, he got us, but we went back, and I was never gonna leave until I owned that court too. And he was like getting fired up. His little red eyes getting all, I was like,
How do you not understand my point then? As you are hearing this right now, how do you not understand what I'm saying about Mike?
Okay. You're right. Mike is a lunatic. But I think that his lunacy is not quite strong enough to beat the best player in the world right now. How old is Michael Jordan? He like 50 something?
55.
Yeah, he's 55. LeBron James is playing as good as he has ever played. He will beat Michael Jordan in a game, even after an eye gouge or a punctured lung. He'll play through it.
Maybe on the 2K. Here's the other part too, man. Mike ain't gonna respect none of your foul calls, but you gonna respect all of Mike's foul calls.
That's fair. But Mike ain't gonna call no fouls.
Mike gonna call every foul against LeBron. What other choice does he have if he's trying to win a game against LeBron?
Eye gouge. Like, I feel like Mike is about this pride with Mike. He ain't gonna be out there like, yeah, that's a foul. Oh. Mike gonna and one you, and you're not gonna take the ball.
Ask the referees in the NBA if Michael Jordan was just tolerating not calling fouls.
Well, that's different. He wasn't calling them for himself. That's different. I don't know. I'm feeling, see, this is, again, proof positive that you are the smartest of the arts, because I started this so sure. Now I'm a little less sure.
By the way, you got to meet Mike.
I did. It's pretty awesome. Pretty cool.
That's pretty dope.
Yeah. I was looking into his eyes, and I saw, like, you know how around, you probably got some uncles like this, or maybe you're like this where, no, you're not. Around their eyes where it is normally white for most people, it's like another color.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know. Is that like a black thing? Like, I'm trying to think of white people who have that, but I don't know. It's only my uncles who got that like off-white eye color.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. I'm just saying, man, I can't believe you are not entertaining the possibility that Mike could do this.
Nah, I'm not. No, yeah, that's nonsense. You almost had me. That's nonsense. Like, that's just, where do you stop? It's just with Michael Jordan, or are there other people? Like, you think Joe Montana could walk out and be a better quarterback?
This is particular to Michael Jordan. Although maybe not in 2018, but like in 1998, I think Jim Brown could have got you 4 yards to carry. I think, in fact, in 2008, Jim Brown beat you arm wrestling. What you think?
This is absurd. This is the podcast, Bomani.
Here's my question. Would you go tell Jim Brown in 2008 that you could beat him arm wrestling?
I wouldn't go tell that to Jim Brown.
Okay.
But if Jim Brown came and challenged me and there was something worth doing, like, I feel like I'm getting that dub. I'm not all that short, but I feel like I'm getting that dub.
I don't.
You think you would lose to Jim Brown?
I know I would lose to Jim Brown.
You think I also would lose to Jim Brown?
I mean, you're a professional athlete, so I'm giving you a little bit more of a chance. Yeah, you lose to Jim Brown arm wrestler.
Call him up. Get him out here.
No, I need to get it. I'd like to see you do an Oklahoma drill with Jim Brown around like 2008. You wouldn't have done that, would you?
Nah, because I got sense.
Yeah, you could have covered. You might have been able to cover Jerry Rice at that point, but you wasn't going to take Jim Brown in the Oklahoma drill.
No, because Jim Brown is from a different era. Jim Brown's from an era where the object of the game seemed to be to knock yourself and the next player out. So I don't need that in my life.
And you don't. Now you understand what I'm saying about Mike. Thank you.
It's not. It's different. The object of Oklahoma drill is to kill the man across from you. And the object of a basketball game is to get the ball in the hoop.
The object of Michael Jordan's life is to destroy people. That's what he came here for. That's why I'd love to see a one-on-one game between Mike and Kawhi Leonard. Might be talking all that noise. Kawhi not saying a single word. We see how it would go.
And Kawhi will win.
I don't know about that. I wish you would have played Michael Jordan one-on-one that day, just so you could have been like, bro, I don't think you want no parts of that, Michael Jordan, bro. You could have been.
I'm not LeBron, no.
I'm just saying, you could have.
I guarantee I would lose to Michael Jordan one-on-one. It'd be close, though.
I'd be trying to foul Mike. And I guarantee you this, at this very moment, right now, you know what Michael Jordan got on under his really big jeans? Hooping shorts. He got on hooping shorts right now, and those North Carolina practice shorts that he wore underneath. He's got them all right now.
Tear off them tearaway pants. They won't even be tearaway, but they will become tearaway as soon as you challenge them.
Hey, when you as rich as Michael Jordan, they all tearaway. You just go buy another pair. That's all it is. But hey, that's Domonique Foxworth. My name is Bomani Jones. Check out The Right Time. We're going to do this thing twice a week here. Remember, subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and at the ESPN app or anywhere else that you can get podcasts. And please rate and review the podcast, especially if you like it. If you don't like it, don't be a hater. Let us celebrate. Talk to you guys next week. Take it easy.
Thanks for checking out The Right Time with Bomani Jones podcast.
You can listen or subscribe on the ESPN app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
The Right Time
with Bomani Jones.